We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And so the American experiment begins. I wonder if she will succeed. If only I can go 234 years into the future to see what she will become. We did it, guys! We reached the end of history! Well, history never really ends, but we have reached the end of this class. The stuff I'm covering today isn't recent history, like the results of the 2016 election, because, well, we don't know what the lasting legacy that will have onto history, but we are going to try to analyze historical events that are also current events. So, we last left off with the response to the September 11th terrorist attack. The attack has largely dominated United States foreign policy and still does into the present. International entanglements with wars in Afghanistan and Iraq left plenty of question marks for Americans as the first decade of the new millennium drew to a close. By 2008, the United States was facing the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. This was during my senior year of high school, and it became harder and harder for me to justify seeing Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince for the 5th time in theaters when gas prices were nearing $5 a gallon. This recession was the result of the early 2000s when many Americans were buying homes, assuming that their house would increase in value rapidly and forever, so that if they were unable to make a payment on their home, you just sell it and make a nice profit. It turns out this was just a huge housing bubble that was doomed to burst. Banks reacted to this by not lending out any more money, and that's called a credit freeze, which is very bad. This turned into a full-fledged financial crisis. When banks stop lending, businesses can't function. This resulted in many Americans cutting back on their personal spending, which results in companies failing. And I'm from Detroit, so this was very bad for our car industry there. Because manufacturing plants went under, it caused them to lay off hundreds of their workers. And those are male-dominated fields, so it's leading to another change. By mid-2009, more women than men held paying jobs for the first time in American history. So the end of the Bush years looked a lot like the end of the Hoover years. After a decade of Americans spending more than they had, government taking a back seat to business, the new president was faced with America's biggest economic challenge since the Great Depression. In comes Barack Obama, who 50 years before his election couldn't sit in the front of a bus in Alabama, and now he is America's first African American president. Barack Obama's father was from Kenya and his mother was a white woman from Kansas. In the 2008 election, Obama was young and he represented change. Being a high school senior at this time, I can tell you, he really appealed to young people and minorities. His campaign harnessed the power of social media and got out the vote. Obama's election was a political watershed moment, and not because he was a black president. He started to break Republicans' solid hold on the South, winning states like Virginia and North Carolina and Florida. With the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and economic crisis and the squabbling in Washington, he had a lot to get done. How did he do? Not bad. Well, some will say not great either. In the end, we all say, "Thanks, Obama." But people use different tones when they say it, so it goes both ways. Obama signed into law the Fair Pay Act, which made it easier for women to sue when they had been systematically underpaid. And he also appointed 2 women to the Supreme Court. He also followed through on his promise to end the war in Iraq, but he did increase the number of US troops in Afghanistan as part of a longer-term plan to end the war there. He did succeed in hunting down Osama bin Laden in 2011. And what about the financial mess that Obama inherited? Obama pushed through a lot of legislation. This included a sweeping stimulus package, which neared $800 billion in new spending. Did it work? Well, if you ask us in Detroit, yes, it did, as our 3 major car companies, Ford, GM, and Chrysler, got back up and running again. Obama's signature policy is the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. This CARE Act seeks to move the United States into the ranks of countries with universal health care, a list that includes every industrialized nation on Earth. It aims to reduce the number of Americans without health insurance by making it easier and less expensive for them to get health care. The success of the Health Care Act we won't be able to determine for many years, but hey, I know people who are alive today because they had access to health care and they only could get that because of Obamacare, so... But of course, there is a huge backlash against both Obama and his policies, and a rise of a very loud, angry base that will push back with vengeance. They just needed a leader to sprout their rhetoric, and, well, you guys know what happens next. So, is America's story over? No, but we have a lot to learn from those who came before us, both from their successes and from their many, many failures. Yes, the founding fathers Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, and Thomas Jefferson would be astonished by what America looks like today. And in some ways, that is a good thing. We did get rid of slavery after all. America was founded as an experiment. Can a nation be governed without a king? Can it be possible for the people to govern themselves and elect their own leaders? Well, I will let you be the judge if the American experiment was a success or a failure.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming.